Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Chris Henderson. I'm the president of Semitrack. We provide education and training, technical training in the semiconductor and electronics industries. And we've been working with SI2 to help develop some training in the area of open access. And so we want to talk to you about our project, and I'll give you a little bit of background on our company as well as we start here. So I want to talk a little bit about the motivation behind why we're involved in online training, give a little bit of an overview of the system, and then we're going to talk specifically about the SI2 application, which involves oaScripting, part of this afternoon session here. So that'll be kind of the focus of what we're doing here. So training is something that everybody says is necessary, but very few people actually want to spend money on this particular topic, okay? It's interesting because we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, on tool licenses, but yet we don't sometimes want to spend $1,000 to help get somebody up to speed so that they can use that $100,000 license effectively. And so that's been a big problem in our industry. And so why is this such a big problem? Well, there's actually a number of reasons why this is the case here. If you think about it from the engineer's perspective, our technology world has become kind of very complex to fully understand. And so you really need material that is going to be easily accessible, and you also need relevant aids as well for doing things. Also, when you work in our industry, quite often you're going to need knowledge of adjacent areas or disciplines that you're working in, and so that's going to be very important. So for instance, if you're doing design, you're going to need to understand the manufacturing process to a certain degree in order to be successful. Also, too, when you work in our industry, as you all know, your time is typically not your own. You're very, very busy, and so there's limited opportunities to be able to investigate new topics or attend conferences like this. So consider yourselves lucky that you're able to be at a place like DAC where you can learn about new things going on. Now, that's from the engineer's perspective. From the company's perspective, obviously, they have some problems with training, too. One would be tight deadlines. If you're off doing training, then you're not getting your work done from their perspective. Also, too, in our world today, we're trying to automate more and more things. So that means that there's limited hiring taking place, and that means we can't allow workers to go away because there is no backup. I mean, you're basically it in terms of the people that are involved. Okay. As you all know, too, tight budgets are a big deal, and also tight schedules, obviously, don't allow for a lot of training to take place here. And so all of this leads to training being ignored then. So how can we then deal with this particular issue? Well, our mission at Semitrack is really to bring new teaching technologies into our industry so that we can make it easier for you guys to learn the particular topics you need to be successful in your job. Now, that doesn't mean, though, that this isn't without its challenges. So again, our industry is very broad and the knowledge body is vast. And so trying to understand this field is a very daunting exercise. Another big issue too, especially with online training, is will the internet deliver the same experience as face-to-face? Okay? For those of us who are older in the room, we would probably say no. Okay, because we've grown up in the world of having and gone through face-to-face training. And so from our perspective, it's hard to envision that. But at the rate that the internet is evolving, we're probably going to quickly get there. And the younger generation certainly thinks about that question a little bit different than those of us who are, say, over 45 think about that particular question. Also, too, how do you deal with the wide variety of interfaces that people have out there? I mean, people work a lot from their laptops, but they also sometimes are consuming content using their smartphones or other kinds of devices, and so that's a big deal as well for how to deal with things. And then also, is the internet even a good medium or a method for learning, okay? Well, we believe so at Semitrack, and so what we've been doing over the past 8 or 10 years in this area is we've been working on different types of learning management systems that can be used throughout the industry. And so we want to use the idea of an LMS, a learning management system, to be able to train employees, much in the same way that modern universities do some of the training for their students. Obviously, we want to have industry veterans who are familiar with topics provide input so that we can provide up-to-date and relevant content that makes sense. Also, too, we want to be able to custom develop materials. We want to be able to easily bring online topics that otherwise may be difficult to teach unless you have a really broad audience to do so, and so that's important. And two, if you're going to have a library like this, it would be good to have an extensive library so that not only can you learn about this topic, but other topics that are of interest at the same time here. So in addition to that, from more of an administrative perspective, we want to be able to have a site that is easy to access and gain results. So in other words, management wants to know, is this effective? And so they want to be able to get in and see if people are doing these things, are they meeting their performance development requirements, and so on in this particular area. And so we've really been working on that aspect of it in our latest version of our LMS here. There's also a number of student benefits as well. Obviously, things like flexibility, being able to study on your own time is going to be important. Eliminating the travel hassles associated with the airports and plane flights nowadays is also important to many people. Being able to create for yourself kind of an individualized learning experience is also going to be important as well. And also being able to have a certificate issued, being able to show that, yes, indeed, you went through this material and you've been able to demonstrate some competency in this particular area here. From a management perspective, they obviously are interested in consistent training across the organization, making sure everybody has the same skills here. We want to make sure that we're reducing costs and being good with our shareholders here, so making sure we're not overspending on topics like travel and such. Also, too, as I mentioned before, from an administrative point of view, the administrator would like to be able to gain access to the user results and make sure that they're doing a good job here. So at Semitrack, we've implemented our online learning with online training servers that can be accessed over the internet. We use an OSX delivery system for our particular servers here with an X-server software interface for doing things here. We use MySQL running Moodle on top of that, an OpenAccess platform for doing learning management. So it's highly extensible, and we've implemented a number of customized extensions on that. And we also have it integrated in with our online registration and payment systems to be able to access that. And one of the main reasons that we did this is we wanted to be able to create custom systems for people using a generic body of knowledge, but allowing users then, or our customers, to bolt on an extended set of knowledge onto that basic set of knowledge so that they had access to everything. And so in order to do that, we really needed this open source LMS so that we could implement custom publishing routines to be able to do that. And two, we've integrated discussion groups into the system as well so that you can discuss the content much like you might discuss things, say, in a classroom environment. So the interface looks something like this here. So if you look on the left-hand side, this is where you can see the listing of the courses that are in the system over here. Within each course, you're going to have the ability to go in and look at the individual classes that are in there, the individual presentations, and so on in here. And along with that, you've also got information from the user perspective on what your grades are, the ability to go in and not only look at presentations, but also documents or videos or that type of thing in the system. The course description is in this field right over here to kind of tell you what all's in the system. And then down here we have the individual presentations that are part of the course that you can watch in the system. In some instances, they could be configured so that you need to watch them in a particular sequence, or they could be designed such that you can go in and access them kind of at random. So you could use this library, for example, as a reference library rather than, say, as a systematic pedagogical tool. Up in here, you'd have your account information. There's a search bar to be able to search within the information, and also notifications that you might have, say, from comments that you put in or feedback from comments or so on in here. So let me move on now to the application here, and that is SI2's application in oaScript training. So SI2 approached us some number of months ago, and they were interested in being able to provide more training in this area. One of the things that's very difficult about this particular topic area is this huge body of knowledge that's out there. Now, over the years, people like James Masters have done an excellent job kind of distilling it into particular areas to make it meaningful for people, but it really needs to be taken an extra step so that it can be made available to more people. And so what we've been working on with SI2 is creating a system where this can happen for a larger number of SI2's customers here. And so we're going to talk a little bit here and give some real short videos here on an overview of the learning management system, how to log in and access materials, what materials we currently have available in our system, how a course works. We'll also talk about how a quiz works, and finally how to print out a certificate once you've completed your materials. I would also mention as well that after the session today, we've got some laptops set up in the back, and you can certainly log in and actually try out the material yourself if you would like to. So I'm going to just show you a couple of brief videos here, but if you want more information, please go in the back afterwards and you can log in here. Okay, so the interface looks something like this here, as we mentioned before. At this point, since we're in the early phases of implementing this information for SI2. The interface maybe isn't as robust with a lot of different materials in here, but what we're going to do is kind of step through so you can see how this works. So this is kind of an overview of the system here. Okay, let me back up a step here. It looks like it was stepping on before I wanted it to here. Let's go over here and do it this way. Okay, so again, over here is where the courses sit. I should also mention that there's a dashboard where you can kind of get an overview of what all is in the system. Here is a listing of the courses along with the course descriptions. So you can click on a particular course and go into it. Once you do, you can hit the enter button and enter the course, and then step through the course here. And so Justin here has captured just some quick video here kind of showing you how an individual course works. Okay. So these courses are typically built up in tools built by a company called Articulate that makes these rapid e-learning tools, and then we deploy them in HTML5 so that they can run across the internet. And so that's kind of an example of how the LMS works here. So let's now drill down into a few of these areas in a little bit more detail. So in order to log in, you'd go up here and click on the login button. And so once you log in, you're going to see a username and a password that's presented to you. So each learner would have their own credentials that they would log into so we can keep track of how everybody's doing in the system. And so once you're logged in, then, of course, then you've got access to the classrooms over here, along with the different courses that you can access in this particular system here. So in the application we're doing right now for SI2, there are 2 courses in here. There is an introduction to the standard course that we've got for OpenAccess, and then there's also another course that deals with oaScripting that's in the system here. So if you look at materials that are in the system over here you can see who's online at the same time. You also have the ability to put in private files or other things if you wanted to do things in that way. Over here, we've got information in the navigation bar on particular aspects of the system. And then finally down here would be the list of the courses along with the participants, grades, and so on that you're able to access in here. Okay, so that is basically what we have in terms of materials that are in the system. If we look at how a course section works in here, so what we would do is we would go down here and we would click on a particular course. Okay, we can see again the materials associated with the course. We can then go in and access a particular course. There may be announcements associated with it if there's something that's being done interactively here. And then, of course, we could click on a particular course to go into it here so that we could access it. Okay. So once we go into a particular course over here, we can then enter it either as a preview or as a standard mode. In the preview mode, obviously you wouldn't get a grade for it if there are quiz questions on there. You wouldn't be recognized as having completed the material. So you'd want to enter it in the standard mode to be able to do that. Once you're in a course, you can walk through it sequentially if you want to, or it is also possible to step around within a course. So again, if you're going to use the system as a reference library, you're certainly welcome to step around in here. And also notice too that there is a search bar in here, so you're able to search within the presentation. I should also mention that these presentations are narrated, and so when you search, it will also search into everything that the narrator says as well. So that's important. I should also mention as well that there is a notes section. So for your staff, where English is not their first language, they can follow along in the notes section over here as well, so that it makes it easier for them to be able to learn. Lots of people can more easily see English written out rather than trying to understand what a narrator has to say. And sometimes seeing both is actually helpful there. So here's how a quiz works. Again, we would go into the materials and go possibly into a presentation. So quiz features are kind of in 2 different places here. They could either be at the end of a presentation that we might go into, and so we might go into a particular topic area, and down near the end there might be quiz questions or review questions that we might go into. And so we can go down in here and see those. So with each presentation, we typically will have a few summary questions at the end that people can take so that they can make sure that they're learning these particular topics. At the very end of each course, there's a final test as well. And we can use the final test then as a way to test their knowledge retention more broadly. And so we can step through a bigger set of questions over there and allow the user to take the test, make sure that they're learning the information appropriately here. So you would step through and take all the questions here. So that's how a quiz would work. Then lastly, once you're done going through all the materials and you've received a passing grade on the quiz, you can go through here. And notice if you have not gone through the materials or taken the test yet, the certificate's not available to print out. So once you've received a passing grade over here, then you're able to go back in and access the certificate over here. And so the certificate then can be available for you to be able to look at, and so you can download that certificate. And it's something that you can bring up and print offline if you'd like to. And so here's an example of what the OpenAccess interoperability standard training looks like, and that would be the certificate that you could have available. And so not only does the system then keep record of what you've done, but also then you can personally keep track of it as well. So the question would be, why should we bother going this particular direction? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons why it's a good idea to go in this direction. One reason is that our industry is maturing, okay? Our processes and therefore our training are becoming more and more standardized in many companies. It isn't like the 1970s making integrated circuits where a lot of it was more of a research mode. Today, a lot of our chip design and manufacturing activities are much more standardized and subject to processes than they were before. And when they are, that makes sense to learn in this fashion. Also, too, our industry is consolidating, and so that means that online training can reach a bigger audience. Okay, so over the past couple of years, the big have gotten bigger, and so as a result, there's some economy of scale by doing things this way. Also, it provides consistency throughout the organization. Because we're constantly being asked to do more with less, especially less time, there's very limited amount of time for training. And so online training is a great way to be able to address that particular issue. You don't have to drive to the university to take a course. You don't have to get on a plane and go somewhere to take the course or that type of thing. It also helps us deal with this issue of limited funds. Being able to implement training in this kind of a fashion can be done in a much more cost-effective way. We've got a broad library online in our general system that you can access right now. And right now, because of the economy of scale, you can actually access our entire library for $500 a year for a single user. And that includes access to everything that's in the system. Okay, and so that's quite a bit cheaper than an education at Harvard. Okay, so we're able to do that because of the economies of scale here. We can take training from what used to be super expensive down to something that's much, much more affordable here. Is this a perfect solution? By no means, okay? A perfect solution would be to have somebody who's an expert in the area sitting next to you at your design workstation helping you out, okay? But unfortunately, James Masters can't be in 97 places at once for oaScript training, okay? So this is going to be a solution then that's going to allow us to be able to create at least a decent solution. And I don't think we want to let perfect be the enemy of good here. So to kind of wrap up this presentation here, the future of training is really something where we've gone more from an individual type of training method into more of a group training method where we've got this large library that's online that can be accessed this way. It's becoming much more collaborative rather than being command-driven. It's much more organic in nature. In other words, when we see the need for particular topics, we develop training in that area rather than simply driving it from the top down. Knowledge turnover is still a big issue. We're constantly doing new things in this industry, even though we are maturing, and so there's still this issue of perpetual beta. Okay? Rather than pushing content down to people, we want to be able to allow people to go in and access the content they need to be able to do things. We want content that's networked and open. We want them to be able to find the topics that they need to learn about and then quickly get the data they need. We want them to be able to get into the system and out. And so because of that, we've designed a lot of our presentation materials to be about 5 to 15 minutes. Okay, so they're very short chunks of knowledge that people can get in and get out of. And finally, we're really in a world now where we're dealing with digital natives, people who understand the computer, understand how to access things. So this is much more straightforward for them to be able to do here. So to conclude this talk, there's many compelling reasons why we think it's important to migrate to online training to be able to do things. This notion of being able to do this anywhere, anytime, okay? You take advantage of the economies of scale here and limited funds. We're one of the first companies to introduce online training for microelectronics, and we've got a number of clients who are using this platform to train within their company. So companies like Qualcomm, onsemi, LTX Credence, SI2, and others use our systems to be able to do this type of training here. And we're really working at the leading edge, trying to bring about new methods for putting content online so that it can be interactive, engaging for the user, but also help give them the information that they need so that they can be successful in their jobs here. Okay, that's it for my presentation. I'll be happy to take some questions if people have some. Yes?
I have three questions. One is, do you have the ability to show video, like for an example or a demo, lab solution, that kind of thing?
Yes, we certainly do. In fact, in our main system, we've got videos showing how to operate things like failure analysis equipment. If you want to see examples of video in this kind of environment, Justin will have some back on the laptop there so he can show you some of the interactivity modes there that capture video. So yeah.
Yeah, and just two more questions. So who has access to this? Is this something that's offered by Semitrack that you have a subscription to? Is it available from SI2 with your membership?
Yeah, this system is available through SI2 with their membership. So the OpenAccess and oaScript training, that is available through SI2. So talk with Marshall if you're interested in access to this particular system for oaScript training. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are you pointing at me still?
Well, I think you had a third question, right?
I hope so, yeah.
Yeah, you had a third question, right?
I feel like I was stealing somebody else's.
No, I don't think so.
This is more of a question to SI2. I mean, is this an opportunity to create formal certification for OA, certain parts of OA?
Yes.
You put that on your resume or something like that, right?
Yes, that's one of the primary goals is to get people certified. Another application is for our university partner students, so we can bring them up to speed offline. Then when you guys get them in the working groups, they already know their way around the OA. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
So I guess you've alluded to $500 a year subscription for Semitrack.
Yeah, our Semitrack system, yeah.
Right. So how much content do you already have on that system?
So we have somewhere in excess of 1,000 hours worth of presentation materials in there. We probably have, I don't know, several thousands of pages worth of documentation, hundreds of hours of video. It takes up, I don't know, it's probably just in terms of size, it's probably on the order of 50 gigabytes, Justin, something like that. It's quite a bit of content up there, yeah.
Okay. Another one. So you also mentioned that all the presentations are narrated. I have some experience with some of the big name media vendors doing similar trainings online.
Sure, uh-huh.
The narration part of it is done by the computer, so it's not even a person.
Yeah, we have a person. We've got the guy with the face for radio doing ours. So it's a real person, and it doesn't sound really weird like the computer voices sound.
The knowledge of the content. It's really helpful, somebody with the knowledge of the content.
That's right. Our narrator has a degree in engineering, so he knows how to pronounce the terminology and that type of thing,
We've been
too.
through months of review passes with Justin behind the scenes, reviewing all the material and making a comprehensive set of notes that the narrator simply has to read.
Yeah, our narrator reads from a script, so we, the engineers, create the scripts that our narrator uses. But our narrator does have a degree, so he understands the subject as well at a certain level.
Offer this line, it works great.
Okay. And finally, I guess
Yeah.
similar to what you mentioned, the certification aspect of it it's pretty lacking
Right, yeah.
Or, anything else outside of semiconductor certification is valued in IT.
Right, yeah.
Be it Linux or Oracle, any
Oh, yeah,
application.
yeah.
But I think that credential combined with maybe IEEE or something, organization that's recognized in the industry, certifying maybe your organization, working with SI to add some more credibility to the certification would be good to have.
Yeah, we agree with that assessment. We've had some discussions with IEEE. That organization is somewhat political and a little bit bureaucratic to be able to work with in a faster manner to be able to do things. I'd like to find an organization that was a little bit easier to work with in that sense. If we can't, though, we'll figure out a way to self-certify or something, just so that we can set up and say, hey, listen, if nothing else, here is a standard of certification, and then we'll work to improve it if people find deficiencies. So
I have one more quick question.
we're running out of time here, John.
Just one quick question.
Yeah, last question then.
What's the, where can I get a list of the content we have available now and a roadmap?
Yeah, for our general content, you can see on our website at semitracks.com what our content is. And in terms of a roadmap, we could have an offline discussion about that. So, okay? Very good.